Alrighty, so I was able to beat Ratatoskr today with LR Zeldris on the team. I just wanted to break through some of the stuff, just so that way you have the information before we get into the actual run. I did use Gloxenia. I originally tried to use King, and I played for over 3 hours and was not able to beat floor 3, so I ended up swapping over to Gloxenia, and I was able to beat all 3 floors, I think, on the very first try, as far as I can remember. So, I mean, I'm sure you'll see the actual run itself, but it took me roughly like an hour, I think, to beat it altogether, but that's actually not too bad considering that the fight itself is pretty rough. And this is without Purgatory Melee, who can do like really big AoE cards to get rid of some of the pillars. So a couple of things that I wanted to note. Here is the gear that I'm using. My Elizabeth is on double defense top and bottom with crit resistance in the middle with crit resistance rolls. Both of the bottom pieces have recovery rate. This actually helps a ton because it's making sure that she's basically getting as much HP back each time she gets hit as possible. Like sometimes it looks like she's gaining just as much as she took, which is great. I do have my Tarmio on triple defense to even lower her HP even more. Once I had Gloxenia on the team, he really didn't target anyone other than Liz, which was great, but whenever King was on the field, he would target random characters sometimes. That could have been because I had different HPs going into each phase, but that, you know, I'm not too sure there. I'm running HP defense on Zeldris just because I have defense bottom pieces because this is an old set. I think it's best if you want to run HP crit resistance just in case, but you don't necessarily have to. I was able to beat it with defense pieces. HP defense on Glox because he's just really tanky in general and he doesn't get targeted. And then I have crit resistance pieces on Valenti just in case she does get hit. I'm running the Deer card set for the 10% basic stats. And then for Zeldris, the reason why I'm using him is because of friend of mine, his name is Peaceblom. I'll try to leave a link to his channel in the description because he does a whole bunch of testing and stuff and posts little clips and everything of him messing with demonic beasts with all kinds of different characters and stuff. He really loves testing. He gave me the idea for this. But the reason why we're using it is because the Holy Relic actually gives us 6% basic stats up to 5 times if we move Zeldris cards and get rid of ultimate move gauge out of him. So you're giving your entire team 30% basic stats, which is actually pretty insane. And on top of that, you know, Zeldris can just do a lot of damage. It does require the LR version of Zeldris, of course. You're not going to be able to do this with regular Zeldris, I don't think. But yeah, the whole kit kind of comes together really nicely. The commandment does, you know, actually play in-game. It's not PvP required, so you can move cards to get rid of debuffs off of you, which came in handy several times. The only issue I have with it is that you can't merge cards to get your ultimates faster, because if you merge a card, you'll end up with the same amount of ultimate move gauge that you started with. But the cleansing kind of helps out a lot, and it was actually kind of a fun little challenge in and of itself. I think that he's a fantastic character. Not 100% sure that he's going to be better than Meliodas by any stretch of the imagination, but those basic stats were pretty hard to deny. So let's get into the actual fight itself. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll have this, links in the description if you want them. I have timestamps if you want to skip through, all of that good stuff. So let's get into the run. You know, feel free to subscribe. Let's hop in. Okay, so for this, I'm going to record, or I'm going to have all of the gameplay and stuff sped up by 3 times, so it is a really long fight. This is not going to be like a fast run or anything like that, but it ended up being pretty smooth for the most part. So this is floor 1. Phase 1, you don't really have too many issues. You're basically just making sure that you're moving him to different totems each turn, or else if he stays on a totem for too long, he will attack seal you and ult seal you, which means you can only use debuff cards. So make sure that you're using 1 debuff per turn to move him around to the different pillars. You should end up drawing more because 3 out of the, 12 cards that you have are going to be debuff cards that you can move around, and if you rush for ultimates with Valenti, she can also put on poison with that. Speaking of that, you will need a poison ultimate from her in the last phase because there are specific gimmicks to the totems. So you can basically throw away the Gloxenia AoE anytime you get it. It's really useless. It doesn't do basically any good for you. I did like King for that because he has a poison and a bleed card. So you basically end up stacking 2 different poison cards with Valenti and King on the team. But Gloxenia's passive with the defense related just ended up being kind of nice, and I guess I maybe just got a little bit luckier with my run, and it worked out a lot better for me. So in phase 2, if you end up letting him get 5 of these stacks, he will actually give himself a pretty significant attack related stat bonus. Ideally, you want to remove those buffs with a Liz Flood card if you can, because her passive removes buffs. I ended up putting it on him, and I even did it with the king team as well, and I was really surprised at how much I'm able to tank even these really hefty attacks that he has. So just make sure that if you're gonna, do a lot of attacks on this phase, make sure there's single targets on the boss himself so it doesn't put a whole bunch of stacks on. And if you're gonna attack with AoEs, make sure that you do like maybe one AoE and then a Liz Flood card to get rid of the extra buffs, so that way he doesn't end up, popping that attack related. But it worked out for me. I do have, almost 16 million box CC at this point. I think I'll hit 16 mil whenever the collab drops next week. So I do have some hefty stats, and just be careful with that. So pushing into phase 3, this is where you're going to have to end up having the Valenti ultimate if you really want to be able to finish this. So I use the bleed card to move him to the right first. That is going to make sure that you have to rotate him through all of the pillars to be able to get rid of his damage reduction stack, which is really significant. I think it's 80% final damage reduction. So you basically want to save all of your Zeldris cards, if you can, till you have that damage reduction stack gone. So I moved him to the right first with a bleed, and then I used the shock card to move him over to the left pillar. I have saved my Valenti ultimate at this point because he cannot be attacked with ranged cards, and the only cards that I have are ranged that are debuffs. So the ultimate does still hit through that, which is fantastic. So that moves him back to the middle because it puts poison on, and once he's back to the middle, he loses the damage reduction stack. At this point, you can kind of just start throwing out cards, getting rid of his HP. You can see Zeldris does pretty significant damage every single time he attacks. His AoE is not the greatest, but the basic idea with this team is that you're going to want to try to move cards and merge cards with him as much as possible to get his basic stats and stuff maxed out, and then obviously throw out some Valenti cards from time to time to get her attack related as well. So let's move on to floor 2. Alright, so with floor 2, it can be a little bit annoying because the idea here is that you kind of need to keep him in the middle, so that way you can try to kill off the side 2 pillars, because the left and right pillars need to be gone before you can actually kill the boss, because he has an immortality stack on. So the idea here, you can throw away any of the Valenti AoEs if you want, because they are going to keep him in the middle. I don't really think you have to worry too much about the debuff cards in this floor itself, but they will come in handy on the first and third phase. The second phase is completely random, so it's not really going to matter too much. You can see I'm kind of just merging some cards around here, trying to make sure that I'm not throwing out bleeds or shocks, because those will obviously move him to different pillars. Once you take out the left pillar, you can throw shock as much as you want. Once you take out the right pillar, you can throw bleed as much as you want. So the ideal scenario here is that you're going to need to try to kill the pillars off before you debuff too much. So one thing to note with these Zeldris, though, is because you cannot merge for ultimates and stuff, you are going to be a little bit, it's going to be harder to get the Elizabeth ultimate kind of started, because you can rotate it where you can sort of throw the ultimate out and then use another Elizabeth card to sort of keep piling the the ultimate on. That's fine, but you basically need to use 3 different cards to get her ultimate in the first place, or you're going to have to end up pulling an extra card to merge. But like I said, it's not actually going to give you any ultimate move gauge, so you still end up needing 3 cards to actually be able to get it. You can see here that I am getting gray stacks on my Liz. That is not ideal, obviously. The gimmick here is that if you get 5 of those food poisoning stacks on, it replaces it with a gray stack. Luckily, each time you move phase in this floor, you will actually lose 1 gray stack, so even though I have 3 right here at the beginning, which really does suck, I still end up with 1 on the last phase because you can only move 2 phases. So you can see I lose 1 here. Going into the second phase, this is where it gets a little bit random. I thought I was going to be super cool and be able to take out both of the pillars in one go here because I put the poison on. I'm almost 100% sure that Zeldris does more damage if the enemy is debuffed, so I was like, okay, we're going to use the Valenti ultimate, it's going to put the poison on, and then I'll be able to kill the left pillar off with the ult, and then, double attack into the right pillar and kill it, but he ends up moving to the right. I think he ends up stalling here for a couple of turns, which was kind of unfortunate, so I'm basically just taking this time to get as much damage out on him as I can. In floor 2, if you can poison the middle pillar, sometimes it will give you a all-stat increase, which is quite nice. I'm not 100% sure what the actual gimmick is, because sometimes you can see, like, I use the ultimate that puts poison on and it doesn't give it to me. I think he has to be off the field when it happens. Like, I think you have to have him not on the field, then use poison, and then it'll put like a little like sun sort of like buff looking thing over the top of the pillar while it has poison on, and it'll give you an all stat increase. But I was a little bit inconsistent with that, so I'm not 100% sure how that works. But you can see, like I said, he just ends up giving me a little bit of trouble here, staying on the right. I'm just making sure to use single targets as much as possible, because if I end up killing that middle pillar, he will not be able to move to it, and then I literally brick the run and I have to restart. So here is him gone. I think it gives me... It does not. Okay, I think because he landed on the pillar, maybe it didn't give me the all-stat increase. If you know what the actual gimmick there is, feel free to let me know. There is so much of a guessing game when it comes to this fight that, you know, it's hard to say all of the mechanics because we literally just don't know. Like, they just don't tell us. So, now that he's back in the middle, we've killed the right pillar here. And we just have to whittle down the rest of his HP. Make sure that if you're going to use your Liz cards, if you have an extra Liz card in hand, throw the ultimate out, then throw the Liz card, so that way you get your ultimate back the next turn. Obviously, can be RNG with your card draw, so that could be a little bit of a hindrance, but not a huge deal. I think I was trying to save the Zeldris AO or ultimate here, so that way I could take out one of the pillars quickly. So yeah, I have all of that stuff in hand. We're gonna, it looks like, use my ultimate, gain the attack related stats. I put poison on, ult the left pillar. Unfortunately, I'm not killing the pillar super quickly, but it does a really big chunk of damage. I do think that Meliodas is 100% better for that. Like, you know, if you go in with an ultimate and like a really nice AoE card, you can kill both pillars in like one turn, depending on like ultimate levels and stuff, but Zeldris does do a really nice chunk of damage regardless, so it ends up working out pretty nicely for the most part. Like I said with the phase 1 on this floor, you can actually influence where he moves with the poison and the shock and the bleed and everything. So if you're going to use anything before you kill the pillars off, make sure that it's a poison. But after that, the only other thing that you really have to worry about is that with this phase, he actually has a revive mechanic. So if you get him below 30% damage or HP, he will actually revive and get a little bit of a stat increase. So do be careful with that. The best case scenario is that you can get him down to 30 to 33% HP, because he has a 33% damage cap, which is incredibly niche, like it's incredibly slim. So do be careful, because you're not going to be able to actually kill in one shot unless he's like in a very short sliver of health. I was almost there. I probably could have reset and done like another small attack, but I just went ahead and let him res. I don't really care at this point. We're able to sort of recycle the Liz passives from time to time, and it's not a huge deal. I have a lot of good Zeldris cards in hand, so I can use those to keep whittling down the HP, and everything should work out pretty nicely. So at this point, like I said, we're just going to keep recycling the Liz ultimate. You could, if you get Valenti cards, you can use those to cleanse off a debuff from time to time, but you can see I'm doing some pretty good damage there, and then I know that I'm clearing on this next phase because the ultimate is definitely going to do damage cap, so I just throw out all of my Zeldris cards right here, and that is going to kill. So next up is floor 3, which is where all the RNG is, so let's get to it. Alrighty, so floor 3 is where it gets really difficult. So there are a couple of things that I was able to do here to try and help make it a little bit easier. The main gimmick is that you need to use all 3 of your debuff cards on the rat at the same time in the same turn to be able to move him to the correct pillar that you want him on. On this first phase, you want him to be on the right pillar, because as long as he's on that pillar, he will actually lose all stats, which is kind of how you end up sort of whittling him down and killing him off, but you also have to have the left and middle pillars gone before you can get rid of his immortality debuff. So there's a lot of sort of like stalling and stuff that you have to do. If I'm not mistaken, as long as you don't end up putting an extra debuff on the rat himself or use an ultimate, he should not move, like he should not leave the field and try to move to a different pillar. So try to take advantage of that as much as possible. You can see that I'm trying to move Zeldris cards and stuff to try to get his passive sort of built up, get his Holy Relic proc, make sure to get those all stats, or basic stats, sorry. Use Valenti cards if you can. Try to make sure that you're getting her attack related stats, because that is going to help you kill. I am able to do a really good amount of damage here, kill off the left pillar, but luckily he does leave the field because I I ulted, but he stayed on the right pillar, which was great. That was really, really lucky of me, I think. So I didn't have to necessarily re-debuff him to get him back on the right pillar here. So I don't ult or anything, I don't debuff him, so he stays on the right in general. And at this point, I'm just basically trying to kill off that middle pillar so that way I can throw out any unnecessary cards and just be able to kill. So because I ulted there, you can see he actually did leave the field, but because there's no other place for him to go, he's back on the right pillar. You can see that he is gaining all stat reductions. Those are just gonna, you know, stack up, I think, you know, up to like 10 or so. I'm not 100% sure what the cap on those is, but once he has several of those on, you'll be able to start doing some really good damage. Make sure that you're using Valenti cards to try and cleanse off if possible here, because you're going to need the Liz cleanses going into the second phase, because on the second phase he's going to debuff you a lot. So one nice thing about this team is that because Valenti does cleanse, you can use her ultimate or her cards to actually get rid of the petrification. So if he ends up petrifying and then he doesn't break anybody free, you can move a Valenti card and then use it, and it'll unpetrify everybody. So that's actually really nice because of the Zeldris commandment. So on phase 2, it gets a little bit more tricky because you need to now get him on the left side and make sure that you can kill off the right and middle pillars. So once he's on the left side for a certain amount of turns, he will start to gain the gray poison, or not poison, but they're gray food poisoning debuffs. And that's basically what you're going to use to push the phase. Unfortunately, I didn't do quite enough damage to kill the right pillar there, but luckily, at the very worst, he moved to the middle instead of the right. So it could have been bad. I could have ended up moving him to the right there. I think on the right, it's the worst one for him to be on. If it's anything like phase 1, he's going to gain like an attack-related increase that doesn't go away. So you definitely don't want that to be the case. So at this point, I'm just trying to kill off that right pillar as quickly as I can and get him back over to the left. You can see that he gives me a little bit of trouble here, stays in the middle, but I think, yeah, I think I have all 3 of the debuffs that I need. So I unstun the Valenti by using the commandment here, and then triple debuff him to get him back on the left here, and then I can basically just ult into the middle pillar and make sure to get it out of the way. So you can see every single card that he uses that isn't a stance or an ultimate is going to put on food poisonings. So making sure you have ways to cleanse those off is essential here. So anytime you get a Liz cleanse card, I try to go into this phase with 2 of them if possible, but you can see he's putting on 3 of them right here. I don't have a Liz cleanse card at this point, so I actually just move a card with every character, so that way I use the commandment to actually cleanse, which I thought was a really, really nice benefit to having Zeldris on the field. Luckily, I'm able to pull a cleanse card here, so I'm able to use that on the next phase. And at this point, I'm basically just throwing cards that I don't need out. Ideally, you would like to have the debuffs that you need to move him to the correct pillar for the last phase, if possible. But it's not necessarily like a requirement because, like I said earlier, you might be able to actually do, or I don't know if I said it earlier or not, but you might actually be able to do a certain amount of damage to move him as well. So you can see here, he has 3 of these poison stacks on. He gains the 4th one right here. I think at the end of his turn is where he takes the damage, and because he had 4 on, he actually kills himself with those. So that is quite nice. I use the Liz card to make sure that I am back up to ultimate, and then as long as I'm not debuffing the actual boss himself, I'm able to sort of make sure that he doesn't move. Keeping him on the middle pillar is really nice for at least like a couple of extra turns, because he will lose max HP if he's on the middle pillar. So you can see he gains 1 stack right here. I think it's ideal to have at least 2, but I was able to beat it with just 1. So at this point, because I know I'm killing off the left pillar, I go ahead and use a couple of ultimates. He actually does move to the right, which is very, very nice for me. We do get a Liz Cleanse card, which is kind of nice. We don't need it right here just yet, though. So I'm making sure to debuff the middle pillar. Actually, okay, I'm going for an ultimate play. I think I end up resetting here, so give me just a second. We're going to cut that out. Okay, so I basically wanted to make sure that I reset there just in case, because I can, as long as I don't ultimate or debuff the boss, he should stay on the right side. So I just made sure to reset, use some cards that weren't going to make him move. You can see that he will put on some gray debuffs. I think the point of this phase is if he's on the right pillar, he will lose as many immortality stacks as he has gray debuffs on your team. So because I have 4 on at the moment, he should lose 4 stacks. You could see that I did reset again because I was not actually able to kill with the ultimate, so I stall for 1 more turn. We do actually end up top decking a level 2 Zeldris spike card, which was quite nice, so I used those to make sure that I kill this time. That should hopefully be enough damage so I can kill the middle pillar there. And now that he's on the right, and he's stuck on the right, he will lose the immortality buffs each turn that he's on there. So at this point, it was basically just like a make or break scenario where I needed to make sure that I was able to recycle my Liz passive. I'm getting several of those gray debuffs on, and they are going to do damage to me every single turn, so that is really annoying. Luckily, with the defense-related stats that I have from Gloxenia and the built-up passives and everything, I'm not really taking that much damage, which is great. You can see that with, the Liz tanks so well, and she basically gains the same amount of HP back that she lost, which is just phenomenal. So he does get a pretty decent amount of lifesteal from his cards here, so that I think is where a lot of his actual HP is coming from. Luckily, I'm able to get my my Zeldris ultimate. I keep the spike card in hand because I wanted to see if the Valenti could actually deal a decent enough amount of damage to make sure that I don't have to waste my Zeldris cards. I'm able to merge a lot of the times, which is great. Just making sure that I can try to get as much hand space as I can for more Liz cards to keep the healing up, or just to pull Zeldris cards. And then I think I end up stalling 1 more turn, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, no, I don't think I do. I think I just go ahead and push for it here. So you can see the level 3 Valenti card does a pretty good amount, and then the spike card is able to finish him off. So I'm thrilled that I was finally able to beat this on my own. Hopefully you guys have good luck, but that is pretty much it from me. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully this was somewhat helpful. A bit of an interesting run with the Zeldris and everything, but yeah, have a great day, guys.